Sato is a lonely bum who somehow ends up on the hit list of the school's scariest teacher. However, when he realizes she's freakier than your mom after 2 shots of tequila, he goes from dodging detention to clapping her after class. I am indebted to you. Ah, ho, ah. It all starts with Sato going to the men's restroom to have some peace and quiet with his right hand, but his goon session is ruined when he walks into his teacher Kana taking a leak. She is sure she locked the door, but Sato frantically tells her that the stall she's using is broken. When Sato asks why she's using the men's room, she sternly says that the ladies' room is currently being cleaned, which is why she had to come here. Since it's partly her own fault, she states she will let this incident slide and tells the guy to skedaddle out of here. However, Sato tells her that the lock is stuck in place and his life flashes before his eyes because Kana is the most feared teacher in the school. She is such a baddie that even the most troublesome students bow to her, and this is the worst scenario possible for the guy. As he prepares himself for the aftermath, some boys enter the restroom and Kana pulls Sato in because a guy and a girl in the same toilet is the type of side quest that gets you sent straight to the principal's final boss fight. As Sato gets baptized in the holy nuns of Kana, she tells him to back off slow and steady, or she'll turn the bathroom into a crime scene. Sato slowly pulls his face back and notices that Kana is not only speaking softly but is also sweating. Just then, her chug jugs push open the buttons of her shirt and she is unable to hold back the faucet, much to both of their embarrassment. Kana loses her cool and is about to smack his face, but Sato quickly embraces her and tells her that he is about to leak as well. A week later, Sato is on the roof with his friend Suzuki, and he is still thinking about the incident. He tells Suzuki that his face looks quite threatening, and he would have never become his friend if he wasn't his junior. Once again, he feels the need to oil his joystick and runs into Mayu's sensei on the way. As he quickly goes past her, she asks Suzuki why he's in a hurry, and he tells her that Sato is going to the infirmary. Once again, the guy runs into Kana, who is sitting in her blouse, and she asks why he's here. Sato pretends that he sprained his foot, and Sato nervously tells him that she has a cold so she came here to rest. She then starts sweating suddenly, and Sato realizes she looks smoking hot in this state. She politely asks him to grab her meds because it's hard for her to move on her own. Failing to fight the right meds, Sato discovers some pills that are taken from the bottom way up. Despite being embarrassed, she goes into the default position and tells Sato to not look any more than he has to. The guy pulls a blindfold on and pulls down, but before he can stick the pill into her cave of wonders, they hear Mayu enter the room. By the time Manhwa approaches her, Sato is tucked between her twin towers under the blanket, and Kana tells her that she will be fine with a bit more rest. After Mayu leaves, Sato prepares for a scolding, but Kana gently tells him that he will catch a cold if he stays so close to her. The next day, Sato does in fact get a cold and wishes he had stayed at home instead. Just then, Kana arrives to care for him because she feels bad he got sick because of her. Sato is now glad he came to school, but when she pulls out the same pill he gave her yesterday, the guy starts reevaluating his entire life. On a rainy day, Sato heads to a laundry store but once again runs into Kana, who is drenched in rain. She explains that it started to rain heavily while she was walking home, so she came here to dry off. Seeing her in this state, Sato's meat stick goes into a high-performance mode, so he suggests she dry her clothes before he starts gooning. Kana gets furious because she doesn't have a spare shirt and believes Sato wants her to show her melons. However, Sato offers his own shirt like a true gentleman, allowing her to put her shirt in the dryer. Later he notices that the rain isn't stopping anytime soon and realizes that Kana is actually terrified of the thunder. She denies it at first but then latches onto his arm. Just then, the power in the store goes out, which means the dryer has stopped working too. Saho suggests they look for a circuit breaker, and it appears to be out of reach for their height. Unable to find anything to climb on, Kana sits on Sato's shoulders and tries her best to reach the breaker. Sato tries his best to stay still, but when his eye catches a glimpse of her bouncy castle, he bumps into a wall and causes a moisturizer to spill all over her back. When he tries to put her down, he ends up accidentally groping Kana's chug jugs. He quickly pulls down the shirt and apologizes for the mishap. But he pulls down so hard that the buttons pop open and now both of Kana's airbags are deployed. Sato then sits in the corner like a virgin, and while the image keeps playing in his head, he cannot unhear the happy noises Kana made when he squeezed her stress balls. Kana then suggests she lift him instead so he can reach the breaker, but then she feels his third leg deploying and immediately grounds him. A few days later, Sato arrives at his mother's family home, but once again runs into Kana playing with his baby sister Shio. Turns out she lives nearby, so his mother Saki asks Kana to babysit their toddler. Sato is surprised she knows his mother and mockingly asks if he even knows how to handle kids. Kana says her babysitting methods are renowned worldwide, but after a miserable demonstration, she admits she doesn't know a thing about babysitting. She also reveals her parents want her to get married and have kids of her own, but where things stand right now, she can't even get a guy to clap him, let alone become mommy. Sato believes she must have high standards for a husband, but Kana says her only requirement is a 6-inch Excalibur, which rules all of you out. She then realizes that her definition fits Sato perfectly and frantically explains that she was not referring to him. To avoid the situation, Sato quickly suggests they make Shio play in the pool. Later, Kana changes into her bathing suit and gets into the pool with Shio, while Sato stays outside fearing another embarrassing accident. His lightsaber is already extended, glaring at Kana's meteor-sized nons, so she splashes water on his face to stop him from staring. He starts banging his head against the wall because he can't bang a shotty, but then turns around to see Kana being sweet and friendly with Shio. Just then, Shio pulls her strap and leaks all of her secrets. Kana quickly covers herself but accidentally pushes Shio out of the pool. Both she and Sato reach to grab her and end up kissing accidentally, much to their embarrassment. Shio is then intrigued by the sheer size of Kana's honkas and suddenly decides that it's feeding time. Sato suggests pulling her away, but Kana tells him to let her be because this shows Shio sees her as a maternal figure. Later that night, Saki thanks Kana for taking care of Shio, and then says she heard her parents are forcing her to get married. She suggests Kana goes for Sato, because he's young and packing a giant rod, and even though Kana is annoyed at first, she can't help but accept that backshots from such a callous meat stick will definitely give her a happy ending. A few days later, Sato heads to his room atop the stairs where he goons to thick anime girls, but Kana is already there. He asks why she's in his room, and Kana reveals his mother invited her over and forced her to sit here. Just then, Saki enters the room with a smirk on her face, which shows she is trying to set Kana up with her son. Saki then hands her a drink, but Kana immediately gets drunk and starts talking nonsense. In her yapping, she hands him an old photo album that shows a picture of her and Saki from years ago. She admits she used to be shy back then, but then points to a picture of Sato, and admits she came out of her shell because of this boy. Kana is then taken into a flashback in which she walks by a bridge and sees Sato on the edge. Sato says hi to her, but she gets nervous and starts second-guessing her choice to become a teacher. Just then, Sato jumps into the river below and she falls right after him while trying to catch him. Since it's freezing cold, she takes Sato back home and dries him off with a towel. She asks why he jumped into the river, and Sato says his friends told him he'd become an adult if he performed the said ritual. Kana says she also heard of a similar custom but breaks the news that it's all made up. She admits it would have been nice if she could just become a grown-up that easily. And maybe then she can stop being socially awkward. Sato interrupts her and says she seems pretty normal to him, and since both of them jumped off that bridge, that must mean they'd both become grown-ups. Seeing his enthusiasm gave Kana the confidence she needed, and after all these years she's become a good teacher. Even now, when it all comes naturally to her, she still remembers the boy when attending to her students. Hearing this, Sato regrets all his life choices because he's the author of his own downfall. Kana then admits she does not remember the name of that boy, and Sato quickly stops Saki from spilling the secret. However, Saki tells her anyway, and Kana quickly embraces him, stating that she's been dying to meet him for years. She thanks him for what he did back then and promises to do something to pay him back. Hearing this, Saki suggests she takes care of Sato, and by taking care, she means spamming jump on his joystick 5 times a day. She then tells Sato that she wants Kana to become her daughter-in-law, so he must pull out his monster truck and run it through her cave of wonders. She then leaves the room to give them some privacy, and Kana, who is still not sober, latches onto Sato. Just then she spots a sussy magazine in his room and starts going through its pages until her faucet starts leaking. She pulls her mote packs out and tells him to swipe her V card. Sato frantically reminds him that she is his teacher, but now she wants to teach him the reproduction chapter in the biology book. As she climbs onto Sato, the guy gets nervous and notes that his sister Shio has somehow crawled into the room. When he tells Kana to back off, she says she'll only stop if he gives her a kiss. Sato is about to do as she asks, but then worries she might get expelled if the school finds out. Before he can make a decision, Kana kisses him on her own and tells him to call her big sis like he used to back in the day. By the time Seiki comes to get Shio, she sees her sleeping with her melons out and praises Sato for giving her a quick happy ending. The next day, Sato sees her in school and calls her big sis as she asks, but she starts scolding him because she does not remember anything from yesterday. Sato believes Kana might go back to being a demon in school, unaware that she is blushing around the corner. A few days later, Saki is invited to a wedding on a tropical island, and much like before, Kana is there for plot convenience. He quietly asks his mother why she's here, and Saki tells her that his father canceled last minute, and she invited Kana so the ticket isn't wasted. She believes Kana is going to be part of the family soon anyway, and it's best for her to warm up to them. Sato doesn't understand what she is saying, so Saki dumbs it down that Kana wants to ride his monster truck. Sato is shocked to learn that Kana has feelings for him. She then takes Shio away to give them privacy, and while Sato is losing his mind, Kana casually approaches him and suggests they spend some time together before the wedding. She takes Sato to a discreet corner of the beach, but the guy gets nervous because of what his mom said earlier. While he convinces himself that there is no way Kana likes him, she asks him to rub some sunscreen on her, much to his shock. Once again, he tells himself that this proves nothing, but while he's at it, he realizes that Kana is the type who would do things on her own without asking for help. But he's still not sure. Kana then asks him to massage the base of her neck, but she starts making happy noises as soon as he does so. She then suddenly blurts out that she loves him, but quickly realizes what she said and turns around. This causes Sato to accidentally get hands-on with her melons, and she frantically tells him to pretend he didn't hear her say these words until he's graduated. She then jumps into the water to cool off, but suddenly starts squeaking for help because her legs have cramped up. After pulling her out, Sato advises him not to jump into the water so suddenly. She apologizes for causing him trouble, and sees a sign nearby that labels dangerous sea snakes in the area. Fearing she might kick the bucket, she latches onto Sato's arm and says she doesn't want to die before removing her factory seal. Sato tells her to show him the bite so he can suck out the venom, and bless the plot gods. It's right by her chamber of secrets. Sato doesn't hesitate and asks her to spread, but she says she can't because her legs are cramped up. With no other choice, Sato puts her down and begins sucking out the venom, but that is not the only liquid that comes out of her. Kana then passes out from the venom, but he later learns that the doctors didn't find any poison in her body, which means Sato's tongue was so deep it hit her factory reset button. Saki then asks Sato if he finally got to test Kana's hydraulics, but runs away in excitement before he can answer. Kana then thanks Sato for saving her life, and as they walk to the wedding ceremony, he realizes that her personality outside of school is entirely different. At the wedding, Sato asks Kana if she would like to come here again after graduation, and she gets upset thinking he's asking her to marry him. Later, she meets up with Mayo at a cafe and tells her that she had a bit of an accident on the island. She then starts blushing and is about to tell her what actually happened, but she suddenly gets a call from Sato and starts talking to him in a delightful manner. Maya feels left out and sad because even after 3 years of liking Suzuki, she hasn't been able to ask for his phone number. A few days later, Sato tells Suzuki that he started dating Kana, and the guy can't believe Sato managed to bag the most feared woman in the entire school. He begs him not to tell anyone about this and that he will be eating with Kana from now on. Suzuki panics because that means he'll have to eat by himself, and even when he tries befriending other boys, everyone just runs away in fear. After Sato runs off, Suzuki sits alone by the pond but is surprised by the sudden appearance of Mayu. She asks if he would like to eat bento with her, and when he asks why, she says it's more enjoyable to eat with someone. Suzuki is confused and asks why isn't she scared of him, and tells him that no teacher is afraid of her precious student. Suzuki immediately creams, realizing that Mayu's gentleness and elegance are the reason she is super popular among students. As they sit together, Mayu was surprised to see Suzuki's culinary prowess, and reveals she's been taking cooking classes too. She then asks Suzuki if he's comfortable sharing with her. While Mayu tries to feed him with her own hands, Suzuki just slides his lid towards her, which makes her realize she came off rather strong. Amid panic, she slips and falls into the pond, and when Suzuki tries to grab her, he ends up pulling her pig off. Mayu's foot gets caught under a rock, so Suzuki pulls her out of the pond in a pose so naughty. He then sits down with Mayu still on his lap but accidentally turns on the valve, causing Mayu's cave of wonders to get hit with a flood. While she's making happy noises, He tries to pull her out of the pond but only ends up causing another waterfall. Later, he begs Maya to forgive him and even offers his own sweater because her clothes got wet. After he leaves, Maya starts smelling the sweater and decides to slap her kitty to it later. Later, she meets Kana in the dressing room and asks why she's been wearing Suzuki's sweater since noon. Maya panics and says teachers shouldn't fool around with students. She then reveals Suzuki is trying his best to make new friends, and she wants to support him both morally and orally. She mindlessly admits that she likes Suzuki as well but then begs Kana to keep it a secret. Later, Suzuki finds himself on a packed train right next to Mayu, and she gently explains that he had left his computer pass in his sweater, so she boarded the train to return it to him. She planned to return to school right after, but the doors closed behind her, and now she's stuck here for the rest of the ride. Since both of them are right in each other's faces, Maya is blushing and Suzuki is nervous because he doesn't know how to talk to women. Just then, Maya notices that her shirt is stuck in the door, and when she tries to pull it out, she trips right into Suzuki's chest. She then wraps her arms around him, explaining that her shirt's buttons got undone and now her melons are breathing free air. Suzuki asks what happened to her bra, and she reveals she forgot to wear one because she came here in a hurry. Suzuki opens up his jacket to give her some room. He trips and pushes her against the glass door. Mayu asks him to move back a bit, but Suzuki can't move at all because people are blocking his path. With her ornaments on display, Suzuki realizes she will be exposed in public if they arrive the platform in this state. To avoid that incident, Suzuki tries to button up her shirt with his own hands. However, instead of the buttons on her shirt, he ends up grabbing the buttons on her airbags and ends up giving her a happy ending. Later, Suzuki apologizes for the mishap, and an officer shows up on the scene to ask why Maya's clothes look all messed up. To avoid getting Suzuki in trouble, Maya latches on to Suzuki's arm and tells the officer that the two of them are a couple. However, Suzuki is a man of principle and tells her that he can never do such a thing even in act because she's his teacher. Maya realizes that she's got zero chance of having Suzuki play doctor with her and turns into a colorless manga panel. The next day, Suzuki heads to a restaurant to pick up an order, but everyone keeps staring at him because he's got the face of a mafia boss. Just then, he realizes that Mayu is standing right next to him. She reveals she lives nearby with her younger sister. Suzuki says he also came here to get some lucky sets for his younger siblings, but Mayu said she got them for herself even though it's childish. Just then, it starts to rain and Suzuki's younger siblings Suzu and Rei arrive in raincoats to get him an umbrella. Since they only brought one, Suzuki asks Mayu to walk with her and she nervously tags along. On the way, Suzu and Rei ask to see their lucky sets, and while Rei gets a panda, Suzu is furious to receive a goldfish. Mayu gently offers to trade her goldfish with her panda, and Suzu excitedly throws it up in the air. It lands right between the milk factory and starts tickling her buttons. She tries her best to hide it and gives Suzu the panda, but when Suzu hugs her in excitement, it only makes things worse for Mayu. Just then, Rei notices a truck coming, so Suzuki pushes everyone to the side of the road, inadvertently sticking the umbrella up Mayu's cakes. With both her sensors triggered, Mayu causes a rainfall of her own and runs off after making excuses. As she returns home, her younger sister Saya walks in on her in the bathtub and scolds her for buying a dumb toy despite being an adult. Later that day, Mayu heads to a restaurant with Kana, but she gets drunk and Sato has to carry her home. Left all alone, Mayu says Kana is lucky because at least she has someone who'll show up on a phone call. As she falls asleep on the table, she goes into a flashback in which she's late to school because of traffic and starts running so she can make it in time. However, she trips and realizes her heel has broken off, so she accepts the fact that she will never make it in time. Just then, an intimidating man asks her if she's okay, and after being startled at first, she explains that she is going to miss her employment exam because of the traffic and a broken heel. After inquiring where she needs to go, the intimidating man offers to take her there in just under 5 minutes. And Mayu was relieved she found someone nice. Just then, she notes that her bra is undone, and as the guy stops by the university, the clip on his belt tickles into Mayu's flat factory. Later, the guy turns out to be Suzuki, who not only gets her there in time, but also fixes her broken heel. Seeing him being so masculine brings out the woman in Mayu, and she notices her heart running a marathon. Suzuki then wishes her the best of luck for her exam before leaving. And Mayu finally realizes that even though she met In for the first time today, her kitty is already asking for a run-through by his monster truck. By the time she wakes up, Suzuki is carrying her home and she cannot understand what's happening. Suzuki reveals he got a call from Sato, who asked him to check up on her since she looked drunk as well. Seeing his soft side reminds Mayu of the day she first saw him. A few days later, the school prepares for the Kaondama festival while Mayu, Saya, and Suzuki oversee the whole thing. With them is Takashi and his freaky advisor Hikari, who immediately takes a liking to the girls and asks Taka to clap one so she can have the other. Later, as Takashi heads home, he promises himself that he will do his best and not depend on his psycho advisor. However, as he walks into his room, Hikari is cuddled up in his bed and welcomes him in a sadistic tone. And she says it's because the heater in her place broke. She then pulls Takashi in to feel little more than the warmth of his body, and the guy starts to choke because of her massive airbags. Turns out, Takashi and Hikari are neighbors who have known each other for years, and she's always been bossy. However, Takashi is a big boy now and wants to resist, only to learn that Hikari has fallen asleep. When he tries to sneak away, Hikari grabs his hand, and he sees that her melons are out for plot reasons. On top of that, her hook is undone, so Takashi tries to clip it back in place. However, he ends up taking the whole thing off, and her entire moke stock is out on display. Without realizing it, Hikari once again pulls the guy in and shoves his face right into her buttons. As he tries to pull back, Hikari's factory wails up, which makes the guy lose his mind. He fails to separate himself because Hazuka is a strong PE teacher, but when he wakes up to find him in that spot, she starts patting his head thinking he's just missing his mommy's knockers. After a while, she decides to head home, and Takashi is relieved she did not get angry. However, this also means she does not see him as a grown man, which makes him sad. Unbeknownst to him, Hikari is losing his mind outside and believes Takashi was trying to unclog her pipes. She thinks his male instincts are kicking in, so she decides to teach him a lesson. The next day, she invites him to shopping, and while Takashi believes she's here to buy toys, she is thinking about a whole different kind of payables. She then takes him to the women's section and explains that her honkas have grown recently. Takashi gets embarrassed and tries to leave, but she drags him back in because he wants him to choose a pair for her. As she goes into the changing room, just then, Hikari asks him to throw her a pair, and he gives her one without actually seeing what it is. Turns out it is a see-through, which makes her think he's trying to mess with her. Never the one to give up, Hikari puts them on but then gets embarrassed because everything is rather exposed. She covers herself in her jacket and cowers in the corner. Just then, Takashi asks if she's done. But before she says yes, he grabs her hand and pulls her out with his eyes closed because he wants to get out of there as soon as possible. Hikari tries to tell him the situation, but he keeps running until they reach the escalator. Once there, he turns around and sees the state she is in. And since her hands are busy covering her flat factory, she asks Takashi to close her zipper. However, her honkas are too big, and she gets embarrassed, pulling his face into them and to feel some sense of comfort. However, she accidentally backs into the escalator's moving belt, and she's so done at this point that she decides to let nature run its course. Later, they head to a cafe, and while Takashi apologizes for everything, Hikari tells him that she won't let him off the hook so easily. Takashi gets scared, but then she gently pulls him and says that despite everything, she had a lot of fun today. As she leaves to get a drink, Takashi recalls the incident and wonders if Hikari will change. However, she returns with a mixture of every drink in the bar and starts acting like a fool, indicating that she is still the same. A few days later, Takashi is hiking up a mountain with his class as an extracurricular lesson, and Hikari is there to make his life spicy. However, Takashi is still embarrassed about the escalator incident and hides behind a tree. When he's about to trip into the river, Hikari quickly grabs his hand, but they both end up getting wet. As they dry off in a cave, it starts to rain and Takashi apologizes for putting them in this situation. Hikari tells him not to worry and dry off while the rain dials down. Just then, Takashi starts to feel cold, and with no other way to warm him, Hikari decides to the ancient heating technique. After pulling out her honkadonkas, she asks Takashi to get bare and cuddle up to her so they can exchange body heat. In his fever dream, Takashi starts to get thirsty and notices water dripping from Hikari's notepacks. Without thinking, he mindlessly starts squeezing the juice out of her watermelons while she frantically pours him tea. However, she ends up spilling tea into her flat factory, and Takashi subconsciously starts quenching his thirst from her fountain of youth. After giving her a tongue twister, Takeshita goes to sleep on her lap while Hikari affectionately caresses his hair. When he wakes up, she gently says that she doesn't want anything bad to happen to him. which reminds Takashi that he and Hikari have always been a bit rough with each other. But even back then, she was incredibly kind and caring. In his platonic affection, he tells Hikari that he loves her but then goes back to sleep, leaving her in a panic. On the day of the festival, the school is decorated and filled with dozens of students. And while Suzuki was preparing for a day of loneliness, Mayu has asked him to be with her for the entire day. He then asks why she's wearing a uniform, and Mayu reveals it's a disguise so students don't realize she is actually a teacher. When Suzuki compliments how she looks, Mayu gets nervous even though she invited him so she could have him unclog her pipes. Just then, they run into Hikari, who is bold as usual and calls them a cute couple. She then introduces them to a game called Cobs and Rubber. And the goal is to find and capture a criminal running around the school. As Hikari puts her in handcuffs, she notes that Mayu has put a lot of effort into picking a uniform, which must mean she's preparing for pounding. She then pushes them both into the room and tells them to take their time finding the key. Suzuki then notices a box on the top shelf, and as he reaches for it, Mayu asks if he heard Hikari speaking, but he says he didn't. In reality, he heard every word that came out of Hikari's mouth, and is now nervous because he never expected such a busty hottie to have a thing for him. As he turns around with the key, he is startled to see her up close to him, and accidentally drops it. The key somehow ends up unhooking her hostler. Mayu's melons are ripe and ready to be juiced. She begs Mayu not to look because her shirt is stuck in the handcuff, so Mayu starts looking for the key with his eyes closed. However, the key has somehow made its way down Mayu's cake factory, and she can't reach for it because her hands are cuffed. Just then, they hear Takashi outside the door, so to keep this from him, Mayu asks Suzuki to stick his hand where it doesn't belong and retrieve the key. As Suzuki closes his eyes, Mayu lifts up the curtain and guides him to extend his hand forward. She nervously asks him to help take off her covers. She says he's the only one she's okay with doing it. So he extends his hands but ends up grabbing onto her honkadonkas. Mayu nervously presses her head down to tell him that he has to go lower, but the key goes flying as soon as he unveils her chamber of secrets, but ends up taste testing the juice leaking out of her orange. After the fountain goes off, Suzuki manages to free her from the cuffs and apologizes for the mishap. He is ashamed that he's caused her nothing but trouble, but from her perspective, he's been nothing but a kind savior. She then tells him that despite all the time she's made her look like an OnlyFans thought, she enjoyed every second of it because she loves it. Realizing what she said, she starts panicking and runs out of the room in embarrassment. As Suzuki leaves the room, he is shocked and wonders if it's really okay to explore his teacher's private notes. However, when he sees Sato, Kana, Takashi, and Hikari, he realizes it's quite normal around these parts and decides to go for it. Later, Takashi and Saya explore the former school building to set it up for the festival's evening program, but are shocked to find Hikari passed out on the floor. Turns out the two of them were asked to survey the area, and Hikari got jealous seeing Takashi act like a grown-up. To show him who's the boss, she ran into the school building all by herself, but a floorboard broke under her, which brings them to the present. They ask why she came to such a place alone to begin with, and Hikari reveals it's because she wanted to scare Takashi by acting like a ghost. Even though he's disappointed, he is used to Hikari pulling such nonsense every now and then. Saya then suggests they leave and get her some help, but Hikari grabs Takashi's leg and nervously says that he doesn't have to go too. However, the floor breaks again and Takashi falls through as well. When he looks up, he sees a view most of you will never experience in your lifetime. Takashi then asks Hikari to try and squeeze down, but Hikari refrains from moving her legs because she's been holding a nature call for a while. Not knowing that, Takashi starts pulling her legs down, so she tells him what's really going on. Takashi then gets her a bucket, but since she doesn't want to soil her curtains, she asks him to make her go commando. Later, Saya returns with Suzuki, so Taka quickly gets rid of the evidence and saves Hikari from embarrassment. After they pull her out, Hikari can't even look him in the eye and decides to make him do something embarrassing so they can get even. However, Takashi starts walking off with Saya and Suzuki, making her think that seeing her in that state might have been too much for him to handle. She believes Takashi might abandon her, when in reality, Takashi is only giving her space so she can have the courage to face him again. Later, as one of Takashi's classmates proposes to him, Hikari shows up dressed as a bear and scares her off. That night, the students decide to explore the old school building as part of their haunted house challenge. But Saya informs Maya that someone in a bear costume is going around and disturbing couples in the hallway. However, their efforts are having a positive effect, and most of those couples have become close due to facing danger. This has started a rumor that the bear will help them get some sloppy toppy, so all the thirsty Discord mods are chasing it, which has turned it into a complete mess. Meanwhile, Hikari avoids the students in the hallway and manages to send them on a goose chase while she catches her breath. She doesn't understand how she got here, but then recalls Takashi ditching her and blames him for the situation. Just then, Takashi enters the room and says he knew she would be here because he's always by her side. Even though flattered, Hikari smacks him in the face for abandoning her, has the two leave the room. However, he ends up planting face first into her cave of wonders and realizes she is going commando today. While he struggles to get off, Hikari's hustler gets stuck into his belt buckle, which causes her airbags to deploy. She tells him to get out of her costume this very instant, but Takashi is stuck because she keeps moving. Amid their struggle, Takashi ends up telling her that he loves her. But it's not the best place to tell her because he has his nose stuck in her business. After they separate, Saya and Suzuki arrive to inform them that the haunted house challenge has begun. As Takashi tries to leave, Hikari grabs onto his hand and hesitantly tells him that he belongs to her now. Meanwhile, Maya frantically goes around the halls looking for the bear so it can make her wishes come true. However, she ends up finding Suzuki and blurts out that she loves him. Suzuki calmly tells her that he is just a student and doesn't have the finances to take care of her, but if she's really into him, they should marry in the future. Maya passes out from the proposal, and Saya strictly tells Suzuki to take it slow with her. The next day, the boys hang out at the restaurant and Suzuki tells their friend Tanaka that he and Sato are dating Kana and Maya respectively. The guy is shocked to hear that, but then he learns that his junior Takashi is also clapping his teacher and realizes he's the only virgin in the group. Motivated to get his olipot licked, he vows to get a shoddy in 3 months before he graduates. As he heads to the kitchen, he admits that his part-time job doesn't leave him much room to bag a girl, and he barely interacts with any chicks in school. Just as he leaves, he bumps into his teacher Chizuru and spills oil all over her clothes. He takes her to the locker room to get her a new shirt, but she says she'd much rather enjoy her coffee than sit through his apology video. Tanaka is shocked to witness her infamous cold behavior and realizes her reputation as the absolute zero precedes her. Tanaka then gives her a new shirt, and without saying a word, she starts changing in front of him. The guy asks him to wait before he's out of sight, but she responds it's fine with an expressionless face. Tanaka is about to leave the room, but he slips on the oily shirt and smacks into Chizuru, and the next thing he knows, he's staring right into her chug jugs. For a moment, Tanaka gets lost in the gravity of her meteors, but then she sternly commands him to get off her, which snaps the guy back to reality. However, Tanaka fails to get up because he's twisted his ankle, and finds it shocking how Chizuru's expression is still the same even in this situation. Just then, her buttons begin rising and she covers his face with her hands, gently telling him not to look at her honka-donkas. Tanaka is a certified virgin like y'all who knows bleeds and then begs for forgiveness later. Chizuru tells him that it's fine, but what isn't fine is his ankle. She asks the guy to show her his leg, but Tanaka assumes she's asking for a pair of pants and leaves to get one, leaving Chizuru to believe she's failed at her job. Later, she asks Hikari for advice, and Hikari tells her that nurses need to be gentle. And it's hard for people to trust her when she never shows any expressions. She also advises her to learn more about the person she wants to get friendly with, and Chizuru smiles thinking about the time Tanaka was staring right into her milk factory. Later, on Christmas Eve, Tanaka prepares for a night of gooning but is shocked when Chizuru shows up at his place dressed as Santa. When asked why she's recording, she says she's trying to get to know him better so she can before friendlier with him. Tanaka asks why she came today out of all days, and Chizuru says it's because a lonely virgin like him would be free on Christmas. Tanaka admits he'd like to know her better too, so Chizuru borrows his TV and starts showing him pictures of when she was young. In one of the videos, she writes her name on a teddy bear she got as a present, and she's still naming her belongings with a marker. She asks if he's learned about her enough, and when Tanaka says he wants to know the current her, she starts showing him a video of her celebrating her last birthday all by herself. She admits she likes to record things, but ever since she left her parents' home, she has been feeling a bit lonely. However, she now has company in the form of Tanaka, so she is a little happier, even though her face doesn't show it. Tanaka jumps the gun thinking she came here because she wants to spam jump on his joystick, but then decides to divert his mind by asking dumb questions. He then offers to record a video for her but accidentally ends up focusing the camera on her no-go zone. As he quickly backs off, he hits his head on the table and the next thing you know, Chizuru is sitting on top of him. Just then, a beer bottle pops open and ruins her undergarments. He then turns to the TV screen and realizes Chizuru puts her name even on her unmentionables, but she quickly covers his eyes in embarrassment. Before leaving, she changes into Tanaka's boxers and hands him a present. Tanaka also retrieves a gift box from his room, revealing that he prepared it just in case a shoddy fell into his lap. The present turns out to be a cute teddy bear, and Chizuru immediately starts writing her name on it. She then thanks Tanaka with a gentle smile, and the guy is happy he got a little bit closer to her. He thinks he's starting to understand her, but then learns that she gave him her underwear. Turns out, Chizuru accidentally gave him the wrong bag and the real present is still on her. A few days later, Tanaka heads to Iwagaki Island and runs into Chizuru, much to his shock. Turns out he ran into her in the mall and helped carry her shopping bag, so to repay him for his kindness, she offered to share anything she won with her lottery ticket. Tanaka agreed to it thinking she'd win a box of tissues or something. But Chizuru ended up winning an all-expenses-paid trip to the Iwagaki Island. As promised, she spits the price and brings Tanaka a lawn, which brings into the present. Tanaka doesn't even know if that's peachy, but all he can think about is their interaction on Christmas Eve. Just then, Chizuru grabs his hand and drags him to a spot by the ocean where he suddenly changes into her bathing suit. Much to Tanaka's shock, she says she wants to take a dip, but he points to the sign that says swimming is forbidden in this area. Chizuru starts to feel down, but Tanaka divers her attention by pointing at some hermit crabs, which she finds cute. However, she slips from the shore and drops into the water, and Tanaka quickly dives after her to pull her out. He pushes her out from the bottom but panics when he realizes she's lost her bottom half sensor in the water. Thanks to the plot gods, she also loses the upper half when she's pushed against the shore, and Hermit Crab presses her button which causes her to drop on Tanaka's shoulders. She nervously asks Tanaka to help her, but the guy can't see above and ends up grabbing her other airbag. With both her buttons getting triggered at the same time, she pops them open and sends the hermit crab flying, thus resolving the issue. By the evening, they change back into their regular clothes and Tanaka notes a magazine in Chizuru's suitcase about spots popular with boys. He asks if she was studying it for his sake, and Chizuru admits she wanted to go with him to a place he could enjoy. Tanaka starts blushing and says he has fun with her everywhere and cannot understand why his heart is suddenly racing. The next day, the two go around doing different things and Tanaka has totally fallen for her by the night. Chizuru then proposes they stargaze and takes him up a mountain so they can get a better view. Tanaka then starts to wonder if the things he's feeling are mainly because of the trip, but his thoughts are interrupted by sudden rain. They find shelter in a small cave and Chizuru is let down because she really wanted to show him the stars. When Tanaka complains about the cold, she crawls up to him and asks if he feels warm now. Seeing her melons up close, Tanaka backs off a little but they both end up falling into another cave below. After the fall, Tanaka is staring right into Chizuru's chamber of secret, but she tells him not to move or the stalactites will break. She then suggests they move really slowly, but due to her movements, she ends up playing Mani with Tanaka. After the rain stops, the two manage to get back on their feet but they can't see the stars because of the clouds. Just then, the moonlight shines through a hole and lights up the entire cave of stalactites, making the whole place look like a night sky. Chizuru says she really wanted to see a shooting star, and Tanaka jokes that she must have been wanting to wish for a boyfriend upon seeing the star. When she admits it, Tanaka starts laughing and realizes that what he feels is no illusion and he has in fact fallen in love with Chizuru. She throws up a victory sign because her dream of being loved by a student has come true, and Tanaka starts to panic realizing she still sees him as a student. Feeling let down, he suggests they head back, but Chizuru suddenly covers his eyes and tells him not to look at her because she's blushing in 50 shades of red. On Valentine's Day, Tanaka awaits a shoddy to give him chocolates, and his misery only grows when Takashi shows off a present he got from Hikari. Panicking, he waits into class hoping someone will throw lefts over at him, but he is the only one left by the end. He decides to head home because it's getting dark, and all the trains and buses have stopped. But it's a full-blown blizzard outside. Despite that, he decides to walk home but then spots Chizuru buried in the snow much due to shock. The two head back inside, and Warman sells off by the space heater because the power has gone out. Chizuru then asks why he is here until so late, but the guy counters with the exact same question. Chizuru gets embarrassed and decides to warm off her clothes first, so she asks the guy to look the other way. As she changes, Tanaka spots a present in her clothes, but she quickly hides it and says she can't have it. Tanaka starts to think she got chocolates from Hikari, but she starts to sneeze before she can explain. They don't have anything to cover themselves up, so Tanaka suggests she eats the chocolates to make herself feel better. Chizuru says she'll have some if he does too, but as soon as she pulls a piece out, it melts and falls onto her honka-donka because of the heater. Tanaka tells her to eat it by herself while he looks for a towel, but he trips on her shirt and ends up licking the whole thing clean. Chizuru starts blushing with her assets on display and hesitantly admits that she was planning to give them to him anyway. When she reveals she and Hikari made them together, Tanaka is moved because he can't believe she'd go so far for him. Seeing the expression on her face, Tanaka is certain she wants to ride his monster truck and decides to make his move before they're no longer able to see each other. Recalling his vague confession in the cave, he takes another shot at it, and this time, he tells her not to look at him as a student or rather as a man. But his heart breaks with Chizuru turns him down. Let down, Tanaka wants to go home but sits by her silently after seeing the snowstorm outside. Unbeknownst to him, Chizuru is waiting for his graduation before she can formally declare his feelings for him. On the day of the graduation ceremony, Tanaka gives a speech to the students but ends up breaking down because he's leaving the school still a hopeless virgin. Later, the boys show up to congratulate him and invite him on a trip during the summer break. But he cannot understand why their teachers are also tagging along. Meanwhile, the teachers are cooking in the kitchen when Chizuru spills baking soda on her shirt. As Tanaka gets her a new shirt, she hesitantly congratulates him on graduating. He credits his success to Chizuru by calling her a great teacher, but she tells him not to title her anymore because she is no longer his sensei. Thinking she doesn't want anything to do with him, he leaves the clothes on the table and quickly leaves the room, leaving Chizuru to ponder on how to convey her true feelings. As she changes, she spots a picture of her and Tanaka on his desk and decides to try again before it's too late. When she accidentally drops the picture, she jumps in to grab it, but a fishing pole falls on top of her, tangling her into a mess. As Tanaka quickly leaves to grab a pair of scissors, Hikari is in the halls with Takashi and decides to peep, hoping she'll catch them doing the nasty. Chizuru quickly moves up to close the door, and Tanaka returns just before Hikari can peep. With the door locked, Tanaka takes a sigh of relief, but his troubles are not over because Chizuru's melons are staring right into his face. After he cuts the line, Chizuru shoves her face into his chest and admits that she doesn't want to be seen in this state by anyone besides him. She then says they're no longer bound by the teacher-student dynamic, so she can finally say that she wants him to remove her factory seal with his Excalibur. She then apologizes for what happened on Valentine's Day, explaining that while she was in love with him, she couldn't bring herself to say it because he was still a student. Tanaka happily hugs her back and tells her that she no longer has to worry about anything. He then joins the rest of the group in a really good mood and says he's looking forward to the trip, especially the part where they go up a mountain to wish upon a shooting star. Later, as the cherry blossoms fall, Hikari and Takashi are being lovebirds on a bench. Sato and Kana are taking a walk in the park. Mayo and Suzuki are having a picnic, and the newest couple is holding hands under a cherry blossom tree. Eventually, the two are about to kiss, but then realize that all of them are gathered in one spot to do the exact same thing, much to the entire group's embarrassment. During spring break, the whole gang goes on a trip, and Sato mentions how it's strange to see Tanaka with his new girlfriend. While Mayo and Suzuki are busy being lovebirds, Kana tells everyone to hurry up to the hotel before it starts to rain. Sato then hurries up to the hotel hoping he finally get Kana to ride his monster truck, but their plan comes to a halt when they learn they don't have a reservation. So Sato asks the receptionist if they have any rooms at all. She says they have 2 rooms with twin beds, but that's only good enough for half of them. Hikari says she's fine staying at the Manga cafe where she and Takashi will play games all night. Chizuru and Tanaka also decide to go somewhere else, but Sato says it's her fault, so she should be the one heading out with Sato. However, they ignore her and exit the halls, so Suzuki suggests they take up the rooms before someone else does. Outside, Tanaka wonders where they will go, only to learn that Chizuru has already made a reservation in a different hotel that provides a view of the stars. She comments that Tanaka is the Rain main, but then gently says that she is also the Rain woman, so it's fine. Tanaka's mind does cartwheels because he's bagged the cutest shawty of the group and vows to protect her no matter what. Just then, they arrive at the building and he's shocked to see that she's booked a love hotel. Meanwhile, Hikari and Takashi are playing games, but Takashi's mind is occupied by the jiggle physics of her melons. He gets tired of gaming and insists they go to sleep. But Hikari starts blushing because she believes Takashi is trying to unlock the default position DLC. She protests that she won't have her V-card swiped in place like this, but Takashi is already half asleep and doesn't know what she's yapping about. However, seeing him sleepy sends her into a high-performance mode, and she admits she won't be able to resist if he tries anything. At night, Mayu and Kana are in an open-air bath, and the latter still feels bad about sending half of their group to manage on their own. Maya tells her not to worry, believing that everyone is having a great time because they are with someone they love. Meanwhile, Chizuru and Tanaka enter the bedroom, and the latter gets performance anxiety because he's a virgin much like y'all. As Chizuru feels let down because the view of the stars was actually just a room projector, Tanaka gets on his knees and apologizes, stating he's never clapped anyone before. After he heads to the shower to clean up, Chizuru doesn't understand why he's so nervous until she realizes what kind of hotel they have. Meanwhile, Kana returns to the bedroom after a bath and feels grateful to those who allowed them to stay here. She then sits back to back with Sato and apologizes for making him worry. Just then, they hear some happy noises coming from the next room and start eavesdropping, thinking that Mayu and Suzuki are playing Dr. Nurse in there. From their perspective, it seems that Suzuki is a god in bed when in reality he's just getting Mayu a really good massage. Hearing them sends Sato to high performance mode, so he pulls Kana's nons out and decides to give her a massage of his own. Meanwhile, Chizuru joins Tanaka so she can teach him some yoga positions. But as soon as she bends a little, bro hits the world record for the 100-meter nut dash. After the worst performance of his life, Takana gets undercover and cries his eyes out, but Chizuru hugs him from the back to make him calm down. He turns around to apologize, but Chizuru suddenly kisses him and assures him that they can always try again. After he gets the green light, he spends the entire night unclogging her pipes. The next day, the squad waits outside the hotel for Tanaka and Chizuru. And while the prior's in a really good mood, the latter arrives walking side to side. The girls ask Chizuru if she's okay, and she reveals Tanaka tapped her so hard it feels like she got run over by a monster truck. That's it for this video. Leave a like and comment which anime you want us to cover next. If you want more recaps like this, watch this video here.